Guneet. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nathan. Glad to be here.
Likewise, Guneet. I was looking forward to doing this episode for a while. So I'm really glad that you and I were able to connect today. For our viewers, Guneet, who may not be as familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself and tell everyone about your background and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you. Obviously, I'm Guneet. The way I describe myself is like very passionate CX leader, CX in terms of customer experience, because that's another kind of topic where everybody defines CX in their own language. For me, it's kind of everything which matters for the customers. It's sum of all the interactions. Very passionate about customer experience domain. Making impact on the customers itself. Had good fortune to experience different industries, different countries. Summarizing it, I'll say leader with a very vivid global experience, delivering top line impact where connecting and growing people is, the fundamental of what I do every day. So that's something is really rooted in my day-to-day operations. For me, I think every customer, every interaction matters. Whether it's employees, their experience is super pivotal and driving that experience itself. Over the last, I'll say, couple of decades of working in professional environments, created new functions, from customer experience to research operations, business transformations, both from grounds up to scaling them, also at the same time entering into the environments where there's already functions, helping them optimize, meet the demand of hyper growth environments, especially in the SaaS industry. And also at the same time, very successfully tackled some non-lead customer problems, customer needs, while making sure that the business is growing at a profitable speed, delivering a double-digit increase in experience ratings and profitability itself. Very proud to be an ex-GE and ex-DocuSign, ex-ADP employee itself. Proudly leading CX and strategy at AppFolio currently. We're building and driving sustainable experiences across the spectrum of customers we have.
That's great. Thank you, Guneet. That's a great background and introduction. When your leadership comes to you and says, "Great job, Guneet," what are they typically counting on you for?
Great question, and I appreciate everybody who kind of comes in that, because that's a connection and that's the piece. Most of the leaders who are stepping into any new domain, they struggle because they don't understand or they didn't take an effort to take a step back and say, let's understand, what does the business speak? What is the language that my CEO and my CFO is speaking? What is the currency they are using? So for me, it has been always about how do we deliver meaningful and measurable improvements in customer satisfaction, which connects with the business outcomes, through whether it's through innovative strategies or solutions, but also translating it in terms of what does it do for the company, for the stockholders, for the shareholders. Also, at the same time, there is an expectation that as a CX leader, you're leading and inspiring professionals, fostering collaboration, across different departments, whether it's sales, marketing, or client services, while driving that continuous learning and accountability. So why it is important? Because building that shared understanding is the foundation before you're going to go too far. Aligning initiatives, across the business is a super critical thing, as you step and as you gain experience day in, day out. Whether you're entering a new market or a new vertical or a new business altogether, that holds the key itself. So that's something which I'll say, receiving the acknowledgement from the CEO for the strategic impact that the CX, the customer experience effort, brings, is really helpful. It's really kind of motivating, helping not only me but from a team perspective. It helps drive the culture, because everybody in the company is able to see the tangible results. Because what happens is most of the time, what I've seen is CX teams are so wrapped up in surveys and journeys that they forget to tie it back to the business. They forget to tie it back to, yes, they make an impact on the customer and make the life easy and their experience effortless. But at the same time, it's our responsibility to connect it back to the business outcomes itself. And that's where I think the appreciation starts coming in.
No, I think that's a great point, Guneet, and thank you for that experience shared. As a customer journey consultancy, that is something we also live and die by, in terms of business impact. As you very rightly said, a lot of CX experts, even research experts and insights experts, it's been my experience that we really tend to get focused sometimes on solving that business problem and looking at the shiny new CX tool or research tool we can deploy and leverage, and how fantastic the data is going to look. But like you said, connecting the dots to the business impact is so paramount. In fact, a lot of times, the guidance we give our clients, Guneet, is, and I talk a lot about these, in these podcasts, is every project should really be tied back to how is this going to move the needle, from a business impact standpoint. In fact, what we recommend to clients is take it even further than business impact, tie it to, if you can, to any sort of financial impact, because at the end of the day, leadership will ask for an ROI on every project that you're undertaking. So if we can tie it to a financial impact, that's great. And then more importantly, also personal impact. How is this impacting the stakeholders, the people that are involved? And a lot of times, Guneet, if the answer that I get back from clients is, really doesn't have a strong business impact, really doesn't have a financial impact, really doesn't have a strong personal impact, then our guidance is, why are we even spending time on this project?
That's right. That's right. And I think the challenge there is, it's not that the professionals are coming without having an intuition or understanding of the business impact or the personal impact. They're not able to translate it. They're not able to quantify, or they're sheer overwhelmed by the scope of the project itself that they forget. They assume that business will understand, or the stakeholders will understand the impact, which your effort will bring, on the business. So that's why it's a responsibility of the professionals to, not only deliver the impact, not only kind of make the experience better, but at the same time, translate it, speak in the language which your company understands. That's why I think one of the key things, which I have practiced over years and years, is don't go and build utopia. Don't try to kind of do multiple things. Just pick one, which is the burning need for your organization at that time, because you have a business to run. And at the same time, you want to make sure that you represent the customers, and then you become that joint key between the customers and the business, that you're able to build on that customer needs and connect it with the business goals itself. So your point, absolutely. If you cannot quantify, there is no point of doing that project. So you should stop and ask yourself, why am I doing it? What does 2 months from now looks like when my CEO or my CFO is going to have a call with me and say, hey, you know what? You did this thing, you invested, you spent so much time. I see the impact on the customers. Yes, ratings are improving, but so what? So it's not that they don't understand, they do, but you have to help them quantify and translate. And what does it mean for the business, and why it is important? Because you have to give back to the customers again if you have to use that investments.
Correct. No, that's really wise, Guneet. And, absolutely, I agree with that 100%. In fact, something that we like to guide clients on is, we like to bring the future state into the present simply by asking, hey, let's pretend this project's a big success, right? Help us just define, what do those deliverables look like? Like when you are sitting in our offices 3 months from now, 4 months from now, and you're saying, wow, this project was a big success. Help us just visualize that from your perspective. What is going to be happening? What is it going to look like? So I think you're spot on. That actually brings me to, my next question, Guneet, which was also on, when you are guiding your stakeholders, and I think you've already touched on some parts of this, and within context of CX and optimizing customer experiences, can you elaborate for our viewers some of the challenges that you have to sort of coach and guide your stakeholders through?
Yeah, absolutely. If this was not a customer experience focused conversation, I would have said go sell, sell, sell. The
Mm.
sell piece is very important because, despite you being there as a leader, despite your C-level understanding the importance of customer experience, there's a constant need of selling and educating that why you need to exist. What impact you as a CX professional bringing onto the processes, onto the frameworks, or on the systems that you're bringing. So that's kind of, we'll cover it for some other day itself. But from a pure domain standpoint, biggest challenge which I have seen in the project's day-to-day basis, irrespective of the industry, is building a shared understanding on why we need to do. This is what you were talking about a few minutes ago. Building that shared understanding is the biggest and the single most challenge I've seen over the last, I'll say, 20 plus years or so. And the reason is marketing may have a understanding why they need to improve experience because they want to improve the leads, the conversions, and to touch rates and engagement. Whereas product is focused super on the product stickiness, conversion. So you need to build that shared understanding why you need to improve that experience. Whether it's early start, not start, sticking, things like that. So that's something is definitely the top of the list. Second, after that is around how do you align different stakeholders toward that one experience that you're trying to kind of paint. Because why is that challenge? Because as you aligning and building that shared understanding, your customer expectations are changing at the speed of light. You're still on scoping and defining a problem, and the customer is already moving forward. Their expectations are changing. The competitors are coming into the space. So you have to, so if you don't have that mechanics, if you don't have that vehicle cleared out in the beginning, then you will be just catching up with the changing expectations, from a customer standpoint. And then, as you get into the tactical aspect of it, managing the data over. Because once you start into the projects, teams do get overwhelmed. Oh my God, either there is no data or there is too much data. So they don't understand, how do we separate out insights from that customer data we have. There is no action. There's like in total a gridlock. There's so much data coming from marketing, from telemetry from the product, from your client services organization, and you just struggle saying, okay, great. What do we do of this? This is so much data. Where do we? So scope creep starts to happen. So that's something is the another challenge which happens there. Now, overcoming these challenges through a very strategic resilience approach is needed, especially when you are in a cross-functional environment. Again, irrespective of the scale of the company, whether you're a startup, whether you are $500 million company or a $5 billion company, you gotta have a strategic approach. And CX professionals and the CX teams are the best suited, because the way I tell my team is we're like a plumbing van. We have different tools in our toolkit. So we need to bring it out based on what are we trying to solve. And again, strategy is also a piece of it where we have to customize strategy based on the project we are trying to kind of do. So that's something is my recommendation. As CX professional, you got to take a step back and understand, do we have the shared understanding? If you have shared understanding, is everybody aligned on that unified experience vision? Now, if you have not painted that unified experience vision, that's where you start. Say, let's understand, what does that experience look like? What does that solution or a success look like? Whether it's 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 7 months from now, let's paint that picture. Now, we may or may not get there, but let's understand what are the steps we need to take. You may not know how, but you need to have that confidence on your ability to figure out how as you can.
No, thank you, Guneet. That's a lot of information and valuable insights. I want to provide a case study or an example of an actual project where if you can tie some of this in, especially in context of we're big proponents of one way to better understand your customer is through customer journeys. Are you able to share sort of an example of when you leveraged customer journey work to get closer to the customer and some of the challenges you had and how you went about it? Can you just unwrap something like that for our audience?
Absolutely. I'll walk you through an example, and I'll try to make it generic without going into the specific for the company itself. one of the challenge, in my current role, or as I entered my the current company, was first year experience, was not as great as it should be, especially when you are talking about end to end B2B customer space. There's a lot of effort to get started. So the first year experience takes a toll. But once you get started, then it's easy to kind of, do on a day-to-day basis, and your ongoing experience is pretty smooth at. So as I entered the business, one of the first thing I noticed was looking at the customer feedback, looking at the verbatims, that the first year experience needed to be done. So my initial approach was, okay, great. Let's sit down with the customer feedback first to understand what's happening. Is it the initial awareness is a challenge, or is it a post-purchase engagement is a challenge, or is it from initial to the post-purchase engagement overall is a challenge for that? And then before we even commission any project or any kind of research, let's understand what are the objectives we're trying to kind of accomplish from this one. Why it is important for the company to improve the first year experience. One, is it making it easy for customers to switch? Is it easy for customers to kind of, getting started? Or it is basically living up to the brand promises that we're selling to the customers and the selling stage and the sales stage of it. So setting those clear expectations was very clear, very crucial as we kind of get started. In order for us to do that, I was looking, hey, can somebody help me understand where is a single viewpoint? Is there a single journey map, or is there a single view of what that first year experience looked like? The answer was yes, we have different pieces of customer journey through different lenses, whether it's from sales or from marketing or from client services or from the product itself. But there wasn't any unified view of what does that first year experience look like. What are the different actors? What are the different touch points on stage, backstage? What are the different emotions customers go through? So my initial was, okay, great. Let's sit down and let's map out first year experience itself before we go and improve it. But again, I don't want to invest only in mapping, but at the same time, I want to do mapping, identify those opportunities, and improve it. So what we did was, we just sat down and said, okay, great. For us, we're going to focus on first year experience. Let's bring different folks, stakeholders, whether it's salespeople, marketing, client services, product organization in the room. Let's set up a clear objective that we will do our first workshop where we will lay out the current state. What do we know about customers? What data points we have? What are the different touch points that exist? Then we'll do another workshop where we'll start mapping out what does that experience look like? What are the actions customers are taking on stage? What are the what are we doing backstage to make that experience possible? And at the same time, what are the emotions that customers are going through as we talk to them? So those were some of the things that we got started from an experience standpoint. So to answer your question, Journey Map is a very crucial tool, but at the same time, what has happened over the last several years is because many companies have tried journey mapping literally as a software, literally as a tool, without defining what are we trying to get out of it. What are they trying to improve? So as a result of no definition upfront, most of the people get burned by just investing too much time and just mapping out those journey, but not linking it to the outcomes, not linking it to what exactly are we accomplishing, or how does it actually help business grow, from that perspective. So going back to my initial, you have to, again, if you want to do journey map, why? What is the goal of improving that experience by doing that journey? Is it like you're trying to reduce the time it takes to onboard? Is it the time it takes to complete a transaction? Or is it that you're trying to reduce the touch points in the first 60 days or 100 days that your customers know, I only have single point of contact? That's pretty much. Or you're trying to improve upsell and cross-sell after your 6 months of experience with a company or a product. So you have to define. And then the tools kind of, depends on, the situation, depends on what use case you have, you can bring from that perspective. Hopefully that answers, or I can happy to go more detail into that as well.
No, that's a great experience here, Guneet. And, that's exactly what I was looking for. So thank you for sharing those details. For our viewers, I want to double click on a couple of things you said because I feel there was a lot of gold in your commentary over there. You know, First, I think the point I want to clarify for our viewers is um, I really liked how you talked about understanding the customer journey by breaking it down into different journey stages. As you talked about the initiation and the selling stages and the op stages. That is a great way to understand and unbox a complex customer journey is by looking at mini journeys that are going in within the overarching journey. So I really love that point. I think the second part, obviously, that we started talking about in the beginning, and I loved how you tied it in terms of really being clear on the business impact of why are we even undertaking this customer journey effort. What is it that it's going to do? And I loved your experience shares over there, Guneet. And something I want to highlight to our audience also is, with journey work, when it's done right, I mean, it can be a gold mine of a lot of insights, a lot of data, right? But if the business objective is not clearly defined, then what results is, commonly known as analysis paralysis, right? Where you're like, okay, I have so much insight, what do I do now, right? So I loved your reaffirmation of let's be clear on the business impact, because then every layer that we unravel or pull through, we are getting closer to our goal, whatever that goal is, whether it's increasing NPS, whether it's reducing touch points, whatever that goal is, right? So I really loved your affirmations over there. And then I think finally, as we were talking about this whole impact part, um, I think tying it to specific business impacts is the key thing that differentiates from doing work that then goes on to, live on someone's desk as another nice report versus something that the organization throws its resources behind. I think that is the big difference. So I just wanted to highlight that for our viewers that may not be as experienced with journey work as you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for framing from that perspective, because I'm sure by now, I think, especially in the age of ChatGPT, everybody can figure out, hey, what does that process look like for journey mapping or things like that. But I think the rubber meets the road when it's a skill thing. So one is this, yes, you can gain the knowledge by finding an initial, in the pre-chat GPT, it was Google. You Google everything, and you have some examples, you see some slides here and there, and every aspiring CX leader can do it. But it comes down to the skill, and that's another challenge. As you grow into your profession, what is the right skill set to drive customer journey now? Or to customer journey itself, you want to have some experienced designer, or you want to have somebody who can actually go deep into the data, both from qual as well as quantitative standpoint. Because I didn't go too much into the drill into my process itself, but if I have to say, there are like 6 or 7 steps, which we follow in the customer journey mapping, and I can kind of highlight. One is like clearly set up the right objectives, start gathering the data. If you don't have data, build the data. Conduct interviews, internal and customer. Leverage analytics data, telemetry data that you have, understand the touch point X, Y, Z. We know this. Mapping the customer journey is the actual piece, where you're actually bringing stakeholders in, doing the mapping work, and then after the mapping is done, you kind of cleaning it up, making it more digitized at the same time, validating it with the customer. So that's kind of the mapping. The key piece is identifying those pain points and opportunities, whether they're short term, long term, and that's where you as a CX leader, you need to have that critical business lens to say, what are those pain points which are really the customer burning points, and how do I connect that to the business opportunities that my leaders, my C staff is looking for. And that helps you prioritize actions, which is again a very crucial step in the whole process itself, before you go and make changes or implement changes and start executing. And then finally is like, needless to say, you have to continuously measure and iterate on that journey itself. So that's kind of at a very high level, that the process itself. But again, Can anybody with the process mapping background can do this thing? Absolutely. But understanding customers, understanding the needs that they are voicing is not as simple as just having an interview, recording them, and kind of say, hey, translate the interview into, what are the key meeting minutes you have from that interview itself. So that's a science, that you have. And that's where I think I've been talking to you as well. That's where I think we need to tap into the experts in terms of, how do we actually bring in the right skill set to understand the customer mental model, understand the real needs that lies behind that voiceover that customers are talking to you.
Yes, no, absolutely, Guneet. Truer words were never spoken before, because I'll share something interesting with you and our viewers. When we first got started in this around over a decade ago, and I remember one of our first few clients, they showed us this map and it was labeled as customer journey map, right? And so we were reviewing it and we said, okay, so how many customers did you speak with, in creating this customer journey map? And I still remember the quiz look on the client's face. And she was like, no, I spoke with Mark in sales and I spoke with John in ops and then Sally in distribution. And we all teamed up and we developed this journey map. And we were like, okay, well, this is great. It's a great first start, but this is not a customer journey map. It's a process map right now. You have to get the voice of the customer, because only then can you put the word customer on that journey map.
That's
So
right.
I completely concur with your thinking over there. I know we're almost at the end of our time, Guneet, but I wanted to ask you one final question. Uh, if you had to redo the customer journey exercise that you talked about, or if you had to do something new, uh, is there any improvement or change that you would make in your process?
Definitely. As I said earlier, in one of the biggest challenges that customer expectation is changing at the speed of light. So how does that relate to what I'll do differently is, how do I incorporate real-time feedback as I'm going through the journey mapping, as I'm going through the journey research project itself? Incorporating more real-time verbatims, real-time feedback, establishing a mechanism or a process by which I can bring in real time that feedback. That is crucial. My hope is that I will be able to leverage technology to capture those customer reactions as they're happening, rather than waiting for data download, or rather than waiting for a data analysis for the last 3 months, 6 months, of data before I go into this thing. So I can do more quick adjustments as I'm building out my strategy, as I'm building on my action plan for that strategy itself. So now it could involve multiple things, from social media tools to in-app feedback or real-time chat analysis, but that's something I wish I can do more of. Obviously, with the whole deep AI and advanced analytics that is kind of booming right now, how do we leverage these technologies to kind of drive better analysis of the behavior? Because the end of the day, if you speak technically, customer journey map helps you understand the behavior, of the customer. So how do I leverage new age technology for understanding the behaviors, especially when it comes to the large data set, based on the use case itself. So that's something I'll say top two things, are top of my mind as I'm kind of, continuously improving this area, within my team, as well as, the skill set itself.
That's wonderful, Guneet. We wish you all the very best in achieving those. I think that is the next frontier of CX and journey work as well. So we'll be actively following you as well in that regard. But thank you again so much for your time. I think this was a wonderful experience shared, and I am certain that our viewers will walk away with a lot of gold that they can hopefully implement in their work and business right away. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nathan. I appreciate you having me, and I'm excited. Always believe CX profession is a very small community itself, and it's good to kind of learn and give back to the community itself. So thank you for having me and letting me share my thoughts.